at some of the dashboard options that are available in SAP Business One. And what I'm logged into now, what you see on the screen, this is SAP Business One version for SAP HANA. So there is a slight difference in the SQL and the HANA versions of Business One. And what you see before you today is sort of the SAP Business One version for SAP HANA. Now, if there are SQL customers or companies out there that are running the SQL system, don't despair, because the second major option we're going to show you for sort of dashboard management today is the Boyum Usability Package B1 Dashboards. And you're allowed to use the B1 Dashboards whether you're using HANA or whether you're using SQL. There's a lot of similar elements, but there's also some differences as well between the two systems. And I'm going to compare and contrast a few of those differences, but I'm only going to be talking about the dashboard differences. I'm not going to be talking about other things that are different from the HANA version to the SQL version, because there are some of those things. For instance, if you take a look in the menu with the HANA version, you can see there's the Excel report and interactive analysis. I'm not talking about that today. Okay, it's certainly an analysis tool, but it's not part of the sort of the primary dashboarding system. So one of the major differences in the HANA version, and the client is, it's pretty much the same client. It's just that certain features don't work when you're using the SQL version. And one of the features that doesn't work is this newly sort of created, or I guess it's not new anymore because HANA's been around for a few years now, but this dashboard or this cockpit skin, this system that they refer to as their Fiori Cockpit. This is typically the cockpit that's here if you are a HANA customer and it was installed for you, unless you deliberately chose the standard cockpit or the Boyum cockpit. So how do I get the cockpit settings? Let's just take a look, and maybe for a second let's step back and let's define what cockpit means. So think about, you're sitting in your vehicle and you're sitting in the driver's seat. Well, the cockpit's sort of everything in front of you. It's not just the dashboard that's directly in front of you, it's also the other things like the radio controls off to the side, the window control off to the left. That's your whole cockpit. So just like a car has a number of things outside of the dashboard, the sort of the central viewing location, Business One also has that as well. So you've got your menus, your drop down menus at the top, your ribbon bar. That's a little bit like your auxiliary controls outside of the dashboard. You've got your menu structure, which is of course represented in the ribbon bar as well. The whole thing is your cockpit, right? It's the UI, really. It's the way in which you access the functionality of the program. When we say dashboard, we're sort of referring to just the thing in front of you, right? Just this area here. And within dashboards, whether it's the HANA Fiori Cockpit, Fiori, am I saying that right? I don't know. The HANA Fiori Cockpit that was written in sort of an HTML5 based language, as opposed to the other version of the cockpit, which is still present here, and we can switch on. It's the cockpit you see in front of you. These widgets, these gauges, I guess, so to speak. So just like when you're looking at your dashboard in your car, you've got speedometer, fuel gauge, tachometer, maybe other things in the instrument cluster. This is really your instrument cluster, right? That's what we sort of refer to as dashboards. Now, SAP uses the term dashboard to describe some of these widgets. We'll get into that a little bit later, but that just sort of I guess illustrates the point that terminology is not necessarily consistently applied when we're talking about sort of technology solutions, and the word dashboard is a great example of that. So how do we get here? How did we get this Fiori Cockpit switched on if it wasn't already switched on? And where do we sort of allow ourselves to change the skin? So what I did was I went to Modules, Administration, System Initialization, General Settings, and this is where a couple of these fundamental settings are made. Of course, you'll only be able to access this panel if you have the authorization level to do so, because there's a number of configuration settings here that not every user has access to. By the way, it should be pointed out that if what you're looking to do is just change user level settings for the cockpit. In the most recent versions of Business One, both HANA and SQL, if you look in the ribbon bar, you'll see this little head. And this is something new, I think, in I believe it's version 9.3. But you see this little head. You're now able to control certain settings in the system. Some of these settings, like the thread setting, were things that were just sort of globally controlled. And you can see that in this particular case, I'm not allowed to change my skin. It's because when the Fiori Cockpit is switched on, I think for Business One, maybe it takes over. But you can see that you're actually allowed as a user now to change, your window colors, your language, your font size, sort of on a per user basis through this personal settings window. So look for it in the ribbon bar if you're running version 9.3, I believe, 9.3 or higher. Okay? So take a look at that. And there's some other settings that you can, set from a personal perspective. But if we look in the general settings and we go to the cockpit tab, notice how we've got this Fiori style cockpit engaged. So in the standard SAP version for SAP HANA, you have three choices. You can choose to use the Fiori style cockpit. And in many cases, I'm not sure why you wouldn't, because it adds some nice features. There's also sort of the standard cockpit, so sort of the original cockpit before Fiori came along. And there's some cockpit widgets in the standard cockpit, which some of you users might be interested or used to using. And then, of course, you could just switch cockpits off, which means it just sort of gives you a basic desktop with just the menu bar off to the side and then the ability to arrange windows. So no sort of underlying sort of cockpit or dashboard widget tool on your screen that you see in front of you. That's what happens when you click to none. Okay, and then there's this setting to refresh KPIs and dashboards every so many seconds. And I think if you caught it before, this dashboard actually just did a refresh when we were kind of starting our activity. So you can set the refresh time here. I would recommend probably setting a refresh time that's as often as it needs to be, but not too often, because as soon as it refreshes, these charts and graphs and widgets will sort of cycle for a couple of seconds and you'll have to wait. So there's that. If we were interested in changing the skin style, it's here. And when the Fiori cockpit is turned on, you only really have the Fiori skin style available. And I think with version 10, SAP is releasing another new skin style. It looks pretty nice. It's actually a darker blue, kind of high contrast skin style. Looking forward to it. For the base cockpit, I think it's meant to apply to their Fiori cockpit. I wouldn't imagine that they wouldn't put it against other. But if we were to change this setting, like let's say to standard cockpit, that then allows us to change the thread of SAP. So you could still be running HANA and you could still be running it with the golden thread. And I'm going to switch it to golden thread after we've kind of reviewed what's going on in Fiori here. But you can even go back further, like I think signature design, maybe that was the 8.8 design, I can't remember. Classic might be 2007. And it's interesting because even recently I was looking over the shoulder of one of our consultants and I looked at the screens and I was like, oh, is somebody still running 2007? No, they were actually running 9.3 HANA, but they were doing so with the thread, way back. So it's a choice. It's a choice. All right, so we're going to go back to just the Fiori style cockpit. We'll just cancel out of those settings. That's how you get here if you're not here already. And of course, engaging this cockpit, this Fiori cockpit, this is a company-wide setting. Individual users don't get to choose between, standard cockpit and Fiori cockpit. This is a company-wide setting. You get to choose only these things, but notice when you're in your individual user personal settings that the skin style is locked. You're locked into Fiori here. You can vary the font size, you can vary the language set, that sort of thing. Okay. So what we see in front of us is a collection of widgets, and some of these widgets are probably widgets that you know from before, like for instance the common functions widget. Some of these widgets might be new to you, like this My Recent Updates widget. And this is essentially a widget which will track and report on the latest, X number of things that you've interacted with in the system. So, I did a goods receipt, a purchase order, a purchase request. Those were like the last 3 documents I touched. And if I want to go into them, I'll drill into them. This is a Fiori HANA only widget, by the way. It's not currently replicated in any other product like B1 Usability Package. Okay. The other widget that's quite nice with Fiori, and you notice here over on the right-hand side, we've got essentially a card-style KPI for total sales amount. It's not reading any data because we maybe don't have any sales in the system for this year. Obviously, you can define what this KPI means in the title or even in subtext down below. But this is more of a KPI style widget. These widgets over here are what are called the count widget, and they're actually configured in a different place. If you're looking to set up the count widget in Fiori, if you go into Tools and I believe Cockpit down here and Count Widget Setup, so there's a clue. That's how you set up the count widget. And the neat thing about the count widget is it looks like a card-based KPI. Yeah, the refresh happened too, by the way, if you were watching it. But let's say for instance, open service calls, it's not just a static KPI. It's meant to be clicked on to deliver a list of whatever's being counted in the system. So in this case, it's open service calls, and it gives you a list. And if the results of if there's a key in the list, which is sort of an object key, then typically a golden arrow will be put into that, and you can drill into whatever the object is in the list. So nice thing. The count widget isn't something that's replicated in the Boyum B1 Dashboard system. This widget here is called a Workbench. It's sort of like a process map. So there are a number of different workbenches. I think there's 4 that are available. And in the SAP sort of Fiori Cockpit version of this, you're allowed to choose between the 4, and you're allowed to edit the existing ones. So you can actually change the styling of this. You can change the location of the icons. Also, if you select this drop-down list here on the sales order, it'll show you other things that are sort of related to that step in the process, like the open items list, the number of open sales orders right there, last prices report. So you can access those things. It's sort of like, this is essentially just a visual representation of what's already in the menu structure. But it's kind of a nice little workflow here, so it can kind of make it nice. There actually is an editor tool for this that SAP publishes. It's maybe a little known fact, but it is there, and you can use the editing tool to essentially customize this. Make it your own little workflow that's unique to the company that you work with. Clean it up a little bit, put extra things in the extended menu, or clean it, or simplify it. That's the word I'm going for there. So I believe there's a sales process template, there's a finance template, there's an inventory template, and a purchase template, and you can modify those. SAP hasn't allowed for the building of new ones from the ground up. That would be a nice feature. This process map is also something that is available in the Boyum B1 Dashboards B1 Usability Package system, and so we'll be taking a look at that. But the key difference between, and I believe somebody from Boyum can correct me if I'm wrong here, it was something that I'd mentioned. The key difference is that the Boyum process maps in their dashboard aren't editable. They've created sales, finance, inventory, and purchasing that mimic these ones exactly, but there's no editing tool. You can't change them. Boyum's actually also added a map of this for their power user functions, which is nice. We can take a look at that in a moment. Then we have a chart or a graph here. I'm going to show you how we reorganize what's in our cockpit here and how we pick things. There's actually a gallery of things that SAP sort of created, some common KPIs, some common count widgets, some other what they would call sort of a dashboard or an extended report. This particular dashboard widget that's got the inventory status, this is actually more than just a straight up report. This is kind of an extended widget that they built where it's essentially reading the whole value of your inventory, and it's saying here are 4 categories, potential insufficient, potentially excessive, higher inventory, faster moving, lower inventory, slower moving. You can click on here to learn more about what the categories mean. And the other interesting thing is if we click on this bar for any one of these 4 categories, and I only have data in the one bar because it's the demo system, but that'll actually give me a breakdown on an item by item basis, sort of a scatter chart that plots the total value of a SKU in inventory currently over its turnover rate. And of course things aren't really turning over, so they're at 0. But if we clicked on this and it was a real system, it should show me the current value of item code C00002 and what quantity we have, what value we have, and how many times per year. So this is a widget that SAP's built that is a nice feature in the HANA set of functionality that some might find useful, but you can't really replicate this just through building custom data. Like this is a functional dashboard with extra widgets. You can build a chart and a graph that can be replicated, but sort of what they built behind the scenes here where there's interactive widget, this is kind of a little bit of a value add just in HANA. Okay, so if we wanted to modify what was on this dashboard, we'd go up here to the edit button. Notice how there's a folder button. If I click on this, I'm allowed to pick between different dashboards that have been developed, and I can save, even as a power user, I can create a dashboard, say for the purchasing department. I can publish it out so that purchasing just flips to that. So like let's say we wanted to go to the purchase dashboard instead. We select that purchasing dashboard, and this is just sort of like a temporary dashboard. This isn't my personal dashboard, which is what I was seeing before. This is sort of a temporary dashboard for me now in the purchasing role, right? And you can see there's the purchasing workflow map. I actually kind of styled this. I created this, or this might actually have come out of the box. I shouldn't take credit, but you can change what's here, right? So let's go back to the base My Cockpit, and then we'll go into edit mode. So I'm going to hit the pencil here. Okay, so one of the things you can do with the base cockpit is you can disappear things. So let's say, I try to resize this inventory report, but it's just not working for me. It's just not, I don't want it on my dashboard. I'm going to pull this off of here and drag it to the bottom right hand corner. It dumps it to the trash, and you can see when I'm organizing this these KPIs, I'm kind of dragging and dropping them. This is a very snap to grid experience. So this is a wonderful style of experience for users that just sort of, you want to make sure it works. I sometimes refer to this as the Macintosh version of dashboards because it's hard to screw up the design here, right? I'm basically choosing what's on my own personal dashboard. So using this snap to grid might sort of frustrate a power user where they might want to kind of design, in a fine way. Like if I drag this over here, it only really gives me limited possibilities of where to move it. So as a power user, that might frustrate me, and it kind of does, quite frankly. But in an end user scenario, it's very dummy proof. Yeah, that's the word I'm going for, dummy proof. It just works, right? So if we wanted to add a widget here, we click on the plus button, and what we're seeing now is we're seeing the widget gallery, and SAP has created a lot of these sort of standard what they call KPIs and dashboard widgets, and included it in the gallery. And as I scroll through, most of these were pre-created, so aging of receivables, monthly closed tickets, so on and so forth. This one here, if you didn't know it, but I could tell you this was a custom one that I created, like a little open quotes graphical dashboard. But I could decide to switch this on. These things here, notice the difference. These icons really are just one bar graph, one line graph, one grid. That's what SAP calls a dashboard widget. Really, I think it's a misuse of the term. SAP. So I'm going to call you out on that. You'll probably correct me because you're SAP. But I think that this is a plot widget. It's just that the word plot isn't as maybe sexy as the word dashboard. Really what this is a plot. It's an individual chart, graph, plot of the data. These things that they call advanced dashboards, and we'll show that terminology reveal itself when we slip into the design area. These are here. So here we've got like an inventory counting recommendations advanced dashboard, and we can switch it on. It's not just one plot, it's a collection of many plots. So we'll see that. As we move down through the gallery, so I'm just going to slide my bar down, you can see there's a number of card-based KPIs. So key performance indicators that come sort of prefab out of the box, gross profit on things, my sales amount with tax, so on and so forth. There's quite a lot of nice ones there. And then you can create custom ones of these too based on the data structure. Here are the count widgets here, so you can see I think I might have created open service calls. And you know how I tell if I actually created those by hand as I go to count widget setup. And this is sort of like a form of master data. Yeah, my open sales quotes was one I set up. My open leads, ops and quotation. Yeah, so service calls was a custom one. But you get a few ones out of the box, like my open AR, my open AP, my sales orders not delivered. Those are account widgets that come. If we keep on going down the gallery here, you see you got the Workbench majigger here. So you got the sales, the purchasing, the inventory, the financial. And like I say, you can pick from these four. Only these four. You can edit these four. SAP hasn't added the ability to create new ones. So if you want to see that, you go on to SAP Ideas site and you tell them. You tell the world. Okay, and then browser widget. So if anyone recalls, there was that browser widget window that was sort of in the original cockpit version for SAP. They've brought it back by popular demand in Fiori. This browser widget wasn't actually released in the first version of Fiori Cockpit, as I recall, and I think there was maybe a sufficient stink raised about it, and they put it in there. My recent updates, common functions, and then messages and alerts. These are the other three widgets that sort of, if you're used to using the classical cockpit, you'll know these widgets. Well, not my recent updates, but the common functions and the messages and alerts. So that sort of rounds out the additional widgets. So I added these to the system. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to style this a little bit differently. I'm going to shrink that down, going to move things around just so that it fits a little better. Okay, I'm going to move this over here. This is sort of the part of this that frustrates me a little bit. Like I kind of wish that I could go halvesies on this, like that width, but you can't. No, you can't. I think you can make it bigger. Anyway, not the end of the world, but it doesn't provide as fine a control as what I would love to see. You kind of have to hit and miss it. But the dashboard will always scroll, and I think SAP's done a reasonably good job of designing a tool that sort of keeps everyone in the box, and that's nice. You need to be able to keep certain users in the box, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm gonna commit the changes. I'm going to hit the check mark. I can save this as a brand new template if I want. Okay, and I can create a new template, or I could just update my cockpit, right? So you can see that, we common functions here. Again, this reacts just like the other common functions. If there's something in here that you want to do like that, you drag it from the menu structure and you drop it in there. Same. My recent updates, you got the messages and alerts window here. So all unread or all in 30 days or so on and so forth. And if you click on one of these, basically it just pops up the messages and alerts window. That is exactly the same as the existing widget and exactly the same as what Boyum Dashboards does. And you can see the inventory counting recommendation. Again, here you've got a dashboard that I think this might have been styled on sort of an original dashboard from the previous cockpit version. There were dashboards in the previous cockpit. It used a Crystal Reports dashboard creation tool called Excelsius. And so some of these new widgets are styled on the old Excelsius, or the legacy, I should say, Excelsius dashboards. And Excelsius was good. I mean, you could create dashboards like this. The problem was is it's a little bit like Crystal Reports. You needed a PhD in Crystal Reports to sort of create it. And some of you out there have PhDs in Crystal Reports. But hey, it was time and it was effort. And doing some of this basic dashboard creation is now easier in this HANA Pervasive Analytics Designer. So I'll show you what I mean in a second here. But yeah, this is one of these dashboards that are kind of kind of nice. It provides a little extra functionality. Can be nice if you're exploring there. Okay. All right. So there's our cockpit. Again, lastly, the refresh button is the refresh button, and so you're just refreshing the widgets on the dashboard manually. Obviously, those are going to auto refresh according to the schedule that you set in that general settings. The last icon at the top of the cockpit being the enterprise search button. So in HANA, this launches the enterprise search. I'm not going to cover the enterprise search today. It looks like that in HANA. Boyum also delivers an enterprise search. Other add-ons deliver enterprise search, like if you're using Core Suite Country Package, there's also the Core Suite Enterprise Search, which is pretty good. The Boyum's is pretty good. HANA's Enterprise Search is better than all those. And actually, I think that's the one area where if Boyum was striving to improve a little bit, like, hey, make the enterprise search. But the nice thing, if you're running a HANA system, even with the Boyum dashboard switched on, you're allowed to run the SAP Enterprise Search. So I mean, that's cool. Like if we made a choice to choose the Boyum Dashboard cockpit management system over the Fiori cockpit management because we like the fine control, you still get to run HANA based stuff like this enterprise search and some of the other dashboards. And I'll show you how that works coming up. Okay, so I'm not going to get into the features of the enterprise search. That's, if you want to see if there's anything you want to know more about, you want to see us do a video on, what have you, just write in the comment section down below. Or if you got a question, just write in the comment section down below. Feel free to, thumbs up on the video. I mean, if you feel you need to, thumbs down, and certainly hit subscribe on the channel, and then you'll get updates and whatnot. This isn't really that kind of channel. We're not looking to monetize here and earn big bucks, but we just like delivering content out to the B1 user community. Okay, so there's sort of the HANA cockpit in a nutshell. So I had said that we could decide to go to the Boyum dashboard system if we want. Now we're comparing and contrasting to Boyum and the reason for this is because really the B1 usability package and the B1 dashboards I think in our minds is delivering an equivalent level of functionality to the HANA cockpit. In some ways, it doesn't do a few little things that the HANA Fiori cockpit does, but in other ways it delivers other and you might think better functionality in Boyum. And so we're sort of doing the comparing and contrasting here. So I'm going to go to General Settings. I'm going to switch off cockpits in total. Okay, and I'm just going to hit update, and then that I'm prompted as an administrator, does that apply to new users or all users? I think when you switch off Fiori, it's a global setting. I don't think that's user specific. You're kind of making a choice. Now that's not going to apply until the next time I restart Business One. So here's the other thing I'm going to do. I'm going to go into in add-ons, and I see, okay, I got to boot up B1 Usability Package. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that. Okay, so I've got it running in the background. And then there's a couple of settings that you need to do. So you need to switch off Fiori first, because if you don't switch off Fiori, Boyum won't run. The two are mutually exclusive. They will not run together. Okay, so it is kind of a company decision whether you're going with the HANA Fiori cockpit or the Boyum cockpit or the legacy cockpit of SAP or no cockpit at all. That's really sort of the decisions you have. If anyone out there can think of other cockpit management systems for B1 that I'm not covering, this is by no means a sales pitch for any of this stuff. I just happy to have that discussion, right? It's good to have your options. So yeah, we're going to hit the B1 usability package and the B1 usability config. And if you're an administrator, you may know about this menu. And they're in the enhancement modules. They've got this one called B1 Dashboards. So these are all things that are part of the core B1 usability package you don't have to pay extra for. In this tab that says B1 Productivity Package, like Print and Delivery, Document Manager, Budget, MailChimp, blah, 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 those are extra. You have to pay a little bit more to use the Boyum Print and Delivery system, which is nice, by the way. There's some nice things that you can do there that you can't do with SAP. And you can see that I've got Print and Delivery switched on. I would say this is the one B1 Productivity Package module. It's a nice one. So if you want to see a little bit on that, comments below, please. But you get all of these things with the core package, so you may not know that. So I'm going to click on B1 Dashboards. Boyum's really good with the help system. And this ellipsis button, the dot, 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 this is actually just an enhanced security. Like I can choose if certain users do not have access to the Boyum dashboards. I'm not sure why you would do that. You can always set security within the dashboards to control what people are seeing and what dashboards, and we're going to see that. So we're just going to enable it for everybody, and we're going to switch it on. So those two steps, you got to switch off Fiori Cockpit, you got to switch on B1 Dashboards. You also have to have B1 Usability Package. Otherwise, this won't work. Doesn't come standard with Business One, but it's cheap like borscht. You want it. Okay. Okay, so we're going to switch this Business One off. Alrighty, wait for it. Okay, and then we're going to reboot Business One back up here. And you already see it. So I made a change. I backed away from using Fiori. I enabled Boyum, and the default skin when I switched off the Fiori skin was golden thread. So you can see now that I'm logging into my demo company, I'm back into using golden thread. And I could use another thread if I really wanted to, and I'm just going to stick with the golden thread. I like golden thread. Kind of makes me feel like I'm at home. Okay. The thing I like about golden thread, and this may seem a little weird, but I like the color icons, right? The contrast is good. I find it easy to read. Some people like sort of that dark blue on white. The Fiori Cockpit, with the light blue and the white text, some people really, really, really like that. I got to be honest with you, I just don't find it very high contrast, and I think that's what's behind SAP adding another skin. You're going to see one that's sort of dark blue, and it should provide a little bit better contrast. So good for you, SAP, for kind of switching it up a little bit and going to something that it'll look nice and modern, but it'll provide a little more contrast. Okay, so I switched on Boyum, the Boyum add-on, and as you can see, while I switch on the Boyum Usability Package add-on, in the background, the dashboards are loading. Hallelujah. Okay. So these dashboards will load in the background, and just like the Fiori Cockpit, you can see in the top left-hand corner of this dashboard, there's a little button that allows me to do kind of what the 3 vertical lines do in Fiori. I don't know what those 3 vertical lines are called. It's something. Sales, dashboard, purchase, finance, service, and production. These are all ones that Boyum has pre-created for your use. So thank you, Boyum. That's very nice that not only are you giving us a dashboarding tool, but you're also giving us some samples. This is 100% customizable. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got something that works very, very well with the standard dashboarding system. So that this is, I think, a plus, but is very customizable, and it's not so snap to grid. Now, a little more user knowledge is required here. Okay, this isn't just as simple as picking from the Fiori Widget Gallery and sort of dragging and dropping and repositioning the tiles. So if that's the kind of experience you want for your end users, you may want to think about sticking with Fiori. But if the kind of experience that you're looking for is one that you sort of want to tinker with it, you sort of want a BI tool that you can use kind of in the background. Sorry, by the way, I didn't cover how KPIs and dashboards are designed by custom in HANA. I think let's do that in another webinar. If you'd like to see how to do custom design of KPIs and dashboards in HANA, mention it in the comment section below, and we'll do another video. I'm going to show it really quickly, the dashboard design tool in Boyum, but I'm not going to get into it. So in all fairness, we can do that in another web video if you like. All right, so on the sales analysis, you can see I've got, again, what Fiori would call a dashboard, but you could call whatever. Boyum's sort of calling it an overview. It's kind of again, a dashboard or an advanced dashboard. It's a cluster of plots, right? It's a cluster of readouts or of gauges. And these plots, like I just so happens that I have a bar graph here, and I've got 10 customers to date, top 10 customers to date widget. I'm just gonna switch over here actually really quickly. We're gonna choose a different company. I'm gonna log into one of Jerwin's systems, and we're gonna mess it up because I know that would drive Jerwin nuts. Just kidding. So we're gonna go over my colleague Jerwin that works on the pre-sales solutions team. He always has a lot of good demo data to go with some of these systems. So we're gonna flip over companies here. Okay, so he's got Fiori switched on. So we're gonna go through the same procedure again. Maybe while I'm here in Fiori again, you see Jerwin's actually got some nice stuff going on here. He's written like a custom KPI for top 2 sales employees. Jerwin against Rob Burgundy, return reasons, RMA reasons, that sort of thing. I'm just going to call out the in the tools menu when you're in HANA, this pervasive analytics. If you open it up, this is your dashboard design tool. This is your KPI design tool. And you can create new card KPIs. They call them dashboards. I call them plots, or multi-plot advanced dashboard. That's what those things mean. And I think maybe in another video, if you're keen, we'll get into how you use this system to design the plots. But this is where the dashboard design happens if you want to customize what's here. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. So you see it again. System initialization, general settings. I'll go a little quicker this time. Fiori, all users, update. Jerwin's going to log into the system. He'd be like, what? Who's in here? Who changed my dashboards, man? It's not cool. It really isn't cool. Okay, we're going to go to the B1 Usability Package, and we're going to go to the config menu. Yep, so Jerwin had B1 Dashboard switched on already, but because Fiori was enabled, it overrode it. And every time you were to log into a system that has B1 Dashboards or you switch, it might give you an error message. So if we close this SAP again and we relaunch it, yeah, see, we're back into Golden Thread, Manager. Jerwin, you got to change your passwords, dude, if you don't want people messing with your demo systems. Okay, it's the same super secret password. Thank you, Jerwin, by the way, for allowing me to use this. Appreciate it. Okay, so we're in Jerwin's demo system. I think this will maybe show off the Boyum dashboards a little better because Jerwin does a better job of maintaining data, demo data in the system. So you can see, yeah, there's a sales call dashboard. This is actually the one dashboard of Boyum that they've pre-created that I'm not fond of. I think they could actually do something different. We've actually sort of envisioned styling this in a way that allows you to kind of more quickly view capacity of your team, so to speak, like technician, kind of see the technicians on the grid, what's assigned to them, and assign out service calls from a list. Kind of working on that. What they've done here is okay, but I think really what we're doing is we're just filtering and sorting this bar graph and these pie charts, and it's probably the weakest of the bunch. No offense, Rasmus or whoever did this, but I think this one needs a little bit more. But I have to say, the production, the way they've envisioned the production management cockpit is really, really nice here. Like if we probably the reason we're not seeing data here is because there's nothing really in range. And let's just see if we can pick today. So we'll go January 2020 update. Just going to put a production order in range here. And here's a little refresh button in the top right hand corner. You can hit the refresh. Okay, that didn't work. But the long and the short of it is the way they've sort of styled this dashboard, like you'll get a listing of all of the production orders that are sort of in progress, whether they're planned or released. You can actually right click on the list. So they've got their version of the open items here, but you can right click on the list and you can sort of drill into it and do things. And then this will sort of give you a status of production orders that are closed, so on and so forth. It could be that I have a date range filter applied, but I do like this production cockpit, and if you know it was something that again anyone out there wanted to see more of a tour and how we think that could be used, we could do up another video. The finance cockpit. Again, these are really just like theoretical constructs that Boyum thinks would be useful. You're allowed to design it. They are hoping that you will design this. So the financial review or the overview has like a receivable aging, some basic stats like stats year to date, stats month to date, and these are these two widget windows. Notice how the widget windows in the overview are sort of shrunk a little bit in your scroll bar. If you want to really quickly drill in, like let's say there's other cards down below, but you want to quickly just sort of blow this up, they've got this little maximize button where you go maximize, and you're like, whoa, okay, and the KPIs are right there and you can read them clearly, and that's good. And then you can shrink it back down. So that's a nice feature. Or you can you maximize this one. What it's doing is it's maximizing it inside of the overview, the advanced plot, the multi-plot window here. So this, they call them overviews. That's what they've named them. But this is essentially like a BI widget that sits just like it would similar to how we saw it in the Fiori Cockpit, where you've got the BI widget component, and then you've got other things like open items, common functions, etc. Okay, so we go to purchase, and we go to, sometimes it takes a couple of seconds for this to load. Yeah, so Jerwin's got some very nice purchasing data. Thank you, Jerwin. And you can notice that we've got a running history of purchases, sort of like trailing 12-ish kind of thing. And then we've got, say, top 10 vendors, and this is a grid style KPI. But notice you can do some fun stuff in the fields of the KPI. Like once you get to know how this dashboard design tool works, and Boyum essentially took an open development, I can't remember the name of the open development toolkit that they use, but it's actually a similar tool as to what Airless uses in their Anywhere portal, and that we use in other products. But this open BI development toolkit, when we look at the designer, it's going to look a lot like other designers that probably you know. So anyone who's done BI design work in something like Power BI or Tableau or Click or so on and so forth, any of those programs, even Excel, you're going to, some of your skills are going to transfer here. Really, this, adopting this tool is really about understanding how to, shift with some of the terminology, but a lot of the basic terminology is the same. Like, you've got plots and graphs and values, slash measures, dimensions, parameters, that sort of thing. Okay, but notice how you can do some really cool stuff in the grid view, like in the let's say we got an item purchases by item group grid, and if I maximize that, it's reporting on the item groups, the quantity, the total sales value, and then a trend KPI inside the grid, right? So you don't just need a card to do that. And that's kind of cool. And I believe that this filled line might be relative to like the line with the highest value. That's why you're seeing, for the seating category 55,000, the fill of the other rows might actually be relative to the grid of the highest value, or you might be able to set a target. So you'd see some of the possibilities that are able to do here. If we wanted to add a new tab in here, we would simply do that. So we go to the Add Edit View settings. So these are the configuration settings in the Boyum Dashboard. And let's say we wanted blank slate. Okay, so we're just going to do that. We're going to add blank slate. Okay, so this is sort of the same as that cockpit folders that you see in Fiori, where you get to design a number of different cockpit folders. And a power user can design these cockpits, this dashboard collection, if you will, and then can push it out to other users. The neat thing about Boyum is that they've given you a really nice sort of context to impersonate what another user sees. So you can call up another user in the system, like let's say we can see what Ron Burgundy sees when he's logged in as a sales guy user, and we can like create and publish dashboards to Ron and sort of confirm that yes, that's what Ron is seeing, because that can be a difficult thing to do sort of at the best of times. So when I start with blank slate, similar to the widget gallery in HANA, I can add a new widget to this window, and here's the widget gallery for Boyum. And you can see that, you know, these overviews, these are all ones that Boyum created. So finance, opportunity, production, purchase, sales, service. I think the opportunity is one that doesn't get thrown in sort of by default, but you could throw it in. And then you can browse down to other widgets. So we've got common functions, messages and alerts, open items, the process flow map. So I'll show you that in a second, just like it's the workbench basically. Boyum also gives you the ability to do their version of sort of a SQL report widget, and this is really nice. I want to show you this one because I think it's worth mentioning, and you can actually, in my mind, build sort of a semi-functional dashboard out of just a straight-up report. And this widget gives you the ability to sort of group and filter and sort and golden arrow things. So we'll show you that. The Common Functions widget is probably one of my favorite, and I think Boyum's doing a better job of this than standard SAP. So kudos to you guys. So we're going to throw the Common Functions in there as a widget. And you can see that it's not as snap to grid. It's a little bit more sort of defined. But once you kind of get other tiles in here, it gets a little more snap to grid. You can see it's a little snap to grid, but it's a little bit finer. You can put things up against each other. So the granularity of how you can tailor and design your dashboard is just a wee bit different with the Boyum system. We can add a shortcut in here. And the difference in the common functions for Boyum is I can actually invoke not just things that are in the menu structure. I can call a Boyum function in the common function. So let's say run a query report, run a macro, or do whatever. But I can select a target out of the entire menu structure, not just the modules of SAP, so not just dragging and dropping the function from SAP, but I could choose to, you know, say call the pervasive analytics designer. I can also give it my own icon, you know, and that icon can be kind of colored, so that's cool. I like colored icons as per my my preference earlier. So let's say we do that, we give it that icon, and there you go. Okay, so you can call it out. And again, we're using the Boyum Cockpit, but all of the HANA functions, if you're using HANA, they're underneath. They are there. You can still use them. Just because you're using the B1 Dashboard cockpit system doesn't mean that you can't put those in there. So yeah, we can put in other things, activity, and away you go. So I like the common functions, color icons, and a little bit more flexibility, or you can call a Boyum function in the system. Maybe not all these widgets. The messages and alerts widget is very, very similar. It gives you a listing, and if you click on it, it opens up this window. So I'm not going to review that. Opens items list. Maybe we'll quickly review that. So again, this is a widget that Boyum's put on the dashboard that sort of enhances what SAP's already got. And the reason I like this one, so it sort of it organizes a little bit differently the open items listing into sort of a cockpit widget. You can switch between the different you know, data objects that you have as open. It'd be awesome if we could maybe do a custom count widget like you know, SAP Fiori is doing, and actually put it in this list. So Boyum, if you're listening, I mean, that would be cool. I'm just saying, like you know, open service contracts, because I see the service calls are here, but open service contracts would be cool. Maybe some other things, but yeah, let's just do that. Let's kind of take a look at open service calls. It gives you a listing. You are stuck with what Boyum decides is the content of the list. So they usually kind of keep it as trim as possible, which I think is a good thing. But they always golden arrow into the objects that are listed in the open items list. So it gives you that ability to drill really quickly into, you know, say the service call, the sales order, or whatever. Here's the difference. You notice the little head icon at the top. So if I'm a salesperson and I'm working with opportunities, here's a total list of opportunities. If I click on the head icon, all the opportunities are mine. Let's go to something else. Let's go say sales orders 91. If I click on the head icon, again, not a great example, Rob. Not sure why I went there. Okay, let's see if it does it on AR invoices. Click on the head icon. Basically, it gives you a filtered list of the things that you are the owner on. And you can actually define in the B1 dashboard system what ownership means. So if you open up the configuration menu on the right hand side, go to general configuration, that is actually a setting that you're allowed to choose. Like open items list will either be based on who the sales employee on a data object is, who the owner is, or I don't know how the user, I'm not sure about that. But yeah, sales employee or owner, those are two fields on things like, you know, any of the marketing documents or whatever. And you can decide to change that based on how you want to define, you know, data ownership. So that's kind of nice. Notice also how Boyum allows you to specify either using its own Boyum search tool or the SAP Enterprise Search tool if you're using HANA, if you're using SAP HANA. I'm assuming this might revert back to the standard SAP search. Again, the standard legacy SAP search ain't any better than the Boyum search. So in that case, you should use the Boyum search, but you may want to use the SAP search, like the HANA Enterprise Search, if you got HANA. It's pretty nice. Okay, so there's the open items list. And then if we wanted to, let's just throw one of the overview widgets in, like the opportunity overview. You know, throw it in there, show you what that looks like. So I'm going to move it up here, resize it a bit, and away you go. Okay, and that's what the widget looks like there. Okay, and then yeah, that's really all I wanted to show you with that. Sorry, lost my train of thought. But if we want to now edit these, so if we go to Edit Dashboard Widgets, and we wanted to actually make a fundamental change in the Opportunity Overview, we would select the Opportunity Overview line, we would click Edit, and it would call up the Dashboard Designer. This is the Dashboard Design program, okay? So I'm not going to get into using this. If you want us to do another video on this, we could get a little bit more into it, but you'll notice it's a lot like a lot of other BI design tools. You've got your data sources over here. By the way, with the Boyum dashboarding system, and you can kind of do this also in the standard SAP stuff as well, there's a way to do this, but let's say you want to hit a database that's inside of your HANA database engine or inside of your SQL engine that's associated with another program or sort of on the same local area network, but just a different database. You could do cross-application reporting with these dashboards. It is possible. You can see that the query result is here. Here are the fields, and they're defined, and here's how we build our widgets. And then you go ahead and you define them here. Okay? And there's many different widgets to choose from in the Boyum tool. You can see you got like a straight up grid or a pivot grid, chart, scatter, pie graph, gauge, card. That's kind of the classical KPI style. Even some mapping tools, and you can throw in like a logo on your dashboard or put text or what have you, right? So there you go. Okay. All right, so that really is the Boyum B1 dashboard system, and I hope that video describes some of the main differences. Maybe just show you lastly, here's the Boyum version of the workflow processes. So you see you got sales, purchasing, finance, inventory. As far as I know, you're not allowed to modify these right now. Any Boyum power users out there? You're actually allowed to choose. They've got a B1 Power User menu little thing here. This is nice. Hey, this I can't recall how many times I've done this. Add-on B1 Usability Package, trying to find in here, or going into Universal Function. Look at how far down the tree I have to go. And as soon as like I miss, you know, and I miss it, then the whole structure collapses, right? So yeah, this is nice. You know, here's the Universal Functions right here. You can just call it right here. So just a heads up on that if you're not using that already. That's pretty sweet. All right, so that really concludes what we wanted to show. The differences, the two of the major options for dashboarding for Business One. Of course, one option is present HANA only. This other option, this is available to you whether you're SQL or HANA. This Boyum Dashboard system, this is part of the B1 Usability Package. So if you want to run this, you have to purchase the B1 Usability Package. But to some of you out there, if you're not already running Boyum, this may be a compelling enough reason to just buy Boyum for your user set. Again, it's a license that is sort of a fraction of the cost of your main SAP user licenses, but it adds a whole lot of functionality. So at the risk of kind of doing a Boyum sales pitch, I'm doing a Boyum sales pitch because frankly it's a nice tool. Okay, so thanks again for taking a look at this video. I mean, again, make sure that you subscribe to our channel if you want to get alerts. Thumbs up or thumbs down, it's totally your choice. And please put a comment, probably more important than thumbs up or thumbs down. We'll attempt to answer questions. We'll attempt to do future videos based on what your likes are. Thanks so much for watching.